It'll make you look good, don't worry. Hold on, the volume's really high. Give me that, you. Whisper, stop shouting. Hello.
It's happened.
What happened to the other debate? The agnostic.
It's happening. Yeah, we're going back
How
to that.
come we went into slavery?
Why is this so loud? Hello. Right, we're back. Andy, we're back. Don't now, Andy.
I was getting bored.
Andy,
Yeah.
you said, is there anything that outlaws? I told you that if there were people, there's black sheep in every community. The Christians in America, if they were Christians, that's what they're referring to themselves as. However, majority of the Christian world today, if I asked them, were they really true Christians? Were they actually following what's written in the Bible? I mean, I doubt Jesus wants a bunch of people taking as slaves, working in the cotton field and whipped and raped and God knows what. I mean, we can clearly see both of us, as an atheist, as a Muslim, or any Christian standing here, we all denounce that. Am I right or not?
Yeah, absolutely. So the puzzle to me is why it took so long. In fact, as far as I understand it, it was really only in the Christian world.
Yeah, go on.
It was only in the Christian world where Britain actually, and there were a few instances before that, but in a major way, in Britain, there was various legal decisions and popular campaigns throughout the 18th century to abolish slavery, which culminated in 1807 in the act which stopped the trade in slavery. In 1833, freed all slaves.
Yes.
Now that's probably 300 years after the British started trading
a long
in
time
slaves.
for you guys, yes.
Now, well, I'm just doing comparisons here. So something like, so if we take 1800 as the date when the West took a strong view against slavery, that's say 200 years. Now at that time, Islam had been going for what, 1200 years. And in fact it took British forces and American forces to convince various rulers of various Muslim, presumably not Muslim countries, I'm confused now, throughout the 19th century, there were various interventions, if you like, that convinced to give support to the anti-slavery people within the Muslim world. I'd put it that way politely.
I'll rephrase it for you, Andy. Are you asking why did Islam take so long to abolish slavery?
Seems to be a puzzle to me.
Is that fair? Is that your question?
It is, yeah.
Why would we abolish something we don't condone in the first place? See, Andy,
same argument applies to the British. Why would it?
Let the sister come in.
Sorry,
what did you say?
Why don't you condemn?
I don't know. What I stated was this.
But why do you have?
I'll explain. Sorry. What your question might be that you said, why did you guys condemn? You know, let's say the West condemned slavery in 1800, yes? And your question is that why didn't you guys condemn it? Well, Islam condemned it. Let's be fair. Until much later. Do you know what you say? I'm saying yes. Would you like? I'll record. The audience. Come on, man.
Everyone's camera shy.
Anyway, the thing is that I stated clearly is, why would Islam condemn something it doesn't condone? Oh, sorry, support. Why, when we don't allow it, why would we condone it? Does that make sense to you?
By the way, Islam actually narrowed down. You know, the slavery was open before, like anyone could just take a slave. A free man could be enslaved. What Islam did was basically only the captives, which were captured during the war, only they could be basically kept as what you would call in the Western world as slaves. Even though in Islam you wouldn't use the word slave as you would do normally the conventional slavery, which the word is actually rik, which is basically specifically for the captives of war. So if you're talking about captives of war, yes, Islam still basically is something that condones it. So you don't just let someone that you captured, like today we have prisoners of war. Yes, the prisoners of war today are not just let go free. They're kept in prison. They're kept in prison. For example, you must have heard of Guantanamo Bay. Do you think there are slaves in there? I would think they're slaves. What do you say, Andy?
Can you give me some examples of these wars where prisoners were taken? Because you speak in
Andy,
very general terms.
Any war.
I don't have
any war.
a time or a place or
Hold on,
an
example. Before we go off in that direction, deeply, looks like it, yeah? We were talking about something else prior.
Yeah,
that was fair.
Talking about why religion doesn't evolve and science stuff.
Yeah. That's correct. And we will finish it. However, I will allow this to be finished.
By the way, there are many things that the atheist and the agnostic agree with, which I find abhorrent and I find to be completely barbaric. For example, abortion. Yeah. Yes, where the baby is ripped open, the baby is pulled and ripped limb by limb. I don't know if you've actually observed. Wait a minute. I don't know if you've actually observed abortion, but it is so barbaric and it is so uncivilized. If anyone watches it, they will say this is not humane at all.
I would.
You would?
And I'm
Well, you're a different person.
No, wait
then,
a minute.
From normal humans.
No, I take issue with this. Because
Really?
I hear this quite a lot, this sliding from atheism. Now, atheism is a lack of belief in God. That's it.
No, I didn't say atheists. I said many, including the atheists. I said many, including the atheists, would actually agree with this, the abortion.
Including some Christians, including some Muslims.
That's why I said including. I didn't exclude.
Some people
Yes,
would agree with abortion.
No, because she mentioned religious people. Why don't they condemn it? I'm saying why don't atheists and agnostic condemn abortion throughout the world? Like for example, in this country, in all the Western countries.
Well, you can say it isn't conscious yet, but I mean,
Sorry, it isn't?
that's not the answer you want to hear.
Wait, it isn't what?
It isn't conscious yet. The baby
I didn't get that.
in the mother
Conscious.
till the third month isn't conscious.
not alive,
It
she's
hasn't
saying.
got a brain.
It doesn't have a brain.
It has not a brain.
It does have a brain.
No, it does have 3 bubbles, which also insects have.
Sorry, at what age do you know? Wait a minute. Do you know at what age? Until what age it's permissible to have an abortion?
3 months.
Until 23 weeks.
Yeah.
Yes? At that stage, it looks completely like a baby. It has all the limbs. It has the heart beating.
Yeah.
Yes?
But
Which,
then
wait
that's just-
a minute. Just because you define it as not living,
Yeah.
yes, I see that as perfectly normal human development.
Of course,
Yes?
I mean,
And wait a minute. If you observe that baby, trust me, if you personally observe that baby, and you think that it's okay to pull it limb by limb and kill it in that stage, then I don't think a normal human being would ever say that. The only way for you to dehumanize it, first they don't call it baby, they call it fetus. Yes, it's actually a fetus. I'm not saying that it's not. Yes, but you know when the mother has a baby, even if it's 1 week old, even when she knows she's pregnant by 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, she'll say, "I'm pregnant with a baby. My baby is in my stomach." Yes, the mother has an attachment. When your mom had you, she didn't say there's a fetus in me. She didn't dehumanize you. Yes. So anyone who says that this is just a fetus and it doesn't think because it has a brain, it hasn't been developed, and obviously the brain is not functioning, yes, so what? It has the potential to function. It has the potential of life.
No, it can develop.
Yes. Who has asked that baby? Yes. You've asked the mother, yes, can you abort? She said, yes, that's fine. But who asked the baby? Which to me is equally human. Like the mother. If the mother has rights, the baby has rights. In fact, the baby cannot defend itself. Yes? The mother can defend herself. The mother can say yes or no. The baby can't. The baby is vulnerable. And that is what I'm saying. Who observed the rights of that human to be aborted, to be killed in cold blood? And this is legal murder, if you ask me. So anyway, if you're going to talk about slavery and all these things that you find in religious books and so on, yes, what about all these things which are not in the religious books, which most of the religions, to my knowledge, actually disagree with? But today it has been harmonized in the society. Everyone that I know, majority of the people, they're okay with it. And I'm sure you both are okay with it. I'm asking you now.
That's very interesting what you've done there, because you've given a very convincing argument using reason why we should have or a certain view of abortion, which I can see the force of your arguments. They're very good. So what I'd be saying is that we live in a very diverse society globally, and certain countries like ours here, we have very many different viewpoints, and we're always going to argue
What's
about
your viewpoint
fundamental
on abortion?
Let me finish. So therefore we need to have a language where we can discuss these sort of issues without bringing our gods into it. I mean, you can respect other people's gods by all means, but what you just did then was a fine example of using reason as a powerful persuasive force to argue the case, and that's brilliant, because I can hear what you're saying, and that's good. And it was good. You're not just saying, oh, it's written in the old scriptures, therefore.
No, I didn't know.
So that's good. Yeah. So that's what I like to hear.
Good. I would like to...
Because and my argument is, and do you follow this? My argument is that based on the diversity argument, the fact that we have Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, atheists, Hindus, everybody, all together here, and the country and the world as a whole. So therefore, we have to conduct these kind of debates particularly about moral issues, in a common language, which will refer back to one's own religious beliefs, or in my case,
solely,
in your
makes
case,
sense.
it will be. I mean,
It's subjective, isn't it? Morality is subjective.
No, I don't think so.
No?
I don't think
Do you
so.
think it's objective?
I think we get into philosophical difficulties, of course, about what we mean by subjective and objective.
What is
So something I ponder about all the time. I mean,
It's inevitable in such discussions if you ask me.
the first question is to clarify what we mean by subjective and objective.
Fair enough, okay.
So, and I doubt if two people would agree with that. There's a very clear sense in which...
Sorry, did you say I doubt if two people will agree with it? That's actually subjective. Thank you very much. You agreeing with me?
No, I mean, it is an area, perhaps an area of contention.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'll give you my sense of what
Fair enough,
it
yeah,
means
go on.
and why I can say morality is objective. That's why
Okay, go on.
I want to justify that. So I was sort of, let's divide the world up into three types of things. So there is the, in terms of how we know things, but there's the obviously thing like the ground and the tree and stuff, which carries on existing whether I'm here or not.
Yeah.
I've no problem in accepting that. So these
Only
things
if you're
are
observed.
only what?
Yeah, only if you're observed.
Only if you observe it.
Oh, that's quantum mechanics. Let's talk about the world of everyday objects. Thank you for the physics intervention. But I'm talking about the world of everyday objects because that's what we're talking about.
So let's call it established science.
Yeah. Well,
Even the religious people will agree with
we can
that.
talk about quantum mechanics later when we.
Or Matrix.
We've had enough. Yeah, forget all those. We'll just assume that there's a real world.
I like the
and we're part
Matrix,
of
come on,
it.
leave it out.
So there's things that persist, right? Irrespective of whether there's anybody at all. Right? Then there's my sense of the greenness of that tree, for example, or the fluffiness of your lovely beard. But that's my sense. Nobody can share that, so I can't even say whether my green is the same as your green. The question doesn't really have any weight to it.
What's that?
It was a gift from somebody to give
Okay.
to you.
Jazak Allah Khair.
But so we're okay with that. So that's genuinely subjective.
Okay.
Right. But then there's something else, which is kind of intermediate ground. So I'd like to say there's things like, well, my usual example is money. So I can say that, when I go and buy a sandwich in Pret a Manger, it's £1.99, say. That to me appears. I always get the cheapest in the sale, but out of date.
Drugs.
When did I last buy a sandwich? Oh, damn it! I've been spotted.
it's cheapest.
We know who he's working for now.
$3.99 at Pret a Manger. So the point is that feels like it's objective, it's real. People would agree with that. But on the other hand, if everybody just disappeared, some virus or something, in what sense would it carry on being £3.49?
What are you on about, bro? If everyone just disappeared, who
Yeah,
disappeared?
it's a
What,
thought
humanity?
experiment, a thought experiment.
Okay.
So in the absence of anybody,
So it's a hypothetical
streets are
question.
empty, everybody's dead. Does it really still carry? Does it make any sense for there to be money? I mean, does money actually have any sense about it if there's nobody around?
Well, it's related, isn't it?
I mean, you could look at an old Roman coin.
Yeah.
In its time, it could buy a loaf of bread. But, well, actually, because it has sort of antique value, it probably buy you.
You can buy
a
bakery
villa
today.
in France now, depending on the.
You're
But the
saying
point
if it became
being,
obsolete.
yeah. So there's certain things that I can say are objective because they're communally shared. We agree on them, but they still depend on the collectiveness of humans to share those thoughts.
No, we
so
were
I
talking
put
about
morality in that.
we
sort
were
of
talking.
category.
Look, I think you mixed up the material world with the morality world.
I did,
because
deliberately,
it's not really a fair comparison if you ask me.
Okay.
We are talking about morality. For example, do you think at one point homosexuality was completely banned, completely prohibited in this country? It was basically illegal. People used to go to jail or whatever the punishment was at that time. But today it's perfectly normal. It's perfectly accepted. Yes. Now wait a minute. That's why I'm talking about the subjective morality.
Yeah.
That at one point it went like 180 degrees, completely banned to being completely accepted. You see what I mean? So where do humans stop in such subjective morality? For example, today incest might not be allowed, yes, but tomorrow it might be perfectly normal. Where do we stop? Where do we draw the line? Because as far as religious people are concerned, we actually have an injunction in the scripture we have. So we know that this has been dictated to us by someone of higher authority. But in terms of an atheist, in terms of agnostic people, they do not have such a standard. The standards do vary. In fact, it varies from country to country. Yes? And in some countries, it might be acceptable. What might be legal in that country might be illegal in another country. So that's why I'm asking you, what you're going to use as basically a yardstick to standardize the morals in a society? Or is just society going to dictate the morals to you? For example, if you had majority of people,
Yeah, it's a concept.
yeah, if you had majority of people and they all agreed, okay, let's have incest, yes? So the minority will obviously be the ones who will not benefit from that, because you work on democracy and you work on the majority, so the majority rules and the majority says yes, it's okay, but then what about those people who disagree with it? Where do you basically say yes, it is moral for one person but might be immoral for another person, and then who makes that decision? That is the question I'm asking in terms of morality, whether it's subjective or objective, and to me it is subjective regardless of how you see it. Yes, so unless there is someone of authority, like for example today, if you didn't have the law, there'll be chaos here. Yes, if you didn't have the traffic lights or the traffic laws, there'll be chaos everywhere. So that's why I'm saying there has to be some standard authority which dictates the laws.
Yeah, but okay. But now you say that. I mean, the thing is, we just adapt our laws to the things which are now here. So like homosexuality. Okay, we realized it was stupid that we persecuted them, and now it's okay. So it's changeable. But I mean.
But who decides that? That's the problem.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, then you say, okay,
we are still talking about human beings. So the human beings who are homosexuals today are human beings, and the human beings 100 years ago from today, they were also human beings.
Yeah.
Who decides what is right and what is wrong to such a drastic degree? You know, like from being death penalty to being completely normal in a society. Where do we draw the line? And this is.
But everything which is written in the Holy Book is true.
No, I'm not talking about the Holy Books right now. I'm talking about you as someone who doesn't believe in Holy Book.
Of course, but I mean, you say that you have a fixed point, what's written there, and
Yeah.
that's all good, and that's all true, and it should be lived. But for me, it's a historic development. This book. I mean, it's just like it's difficult to say because you believe absolutely that it's true and it's been dictated. I see the historic points in it.
No. Remove God from the equation for a minute, and think for yourself as someone who doesn't believe in God. Yes? How would you establish this standard in a society where, like the gentleman rightly pointed out, we got people of different backgrounds, various people, various thinking.
Go for the common, for
the majority?
No, not for the majority. I would
Naveed from
choose
Scdawah.
the law or the thing from which most of the people benefit. I mean, there will always be people excluded, but I just want to have most of the people, you know, lead a good life.
My brother Hashim on the house.
Jesse, stop
My fellow
disturbing.
Muslim blasphemer.
Okay.
That position has problems because let's say everybody in a poll. I mean, you'd be subject to polls all the time, wouldn't you? If that happened?
Remember the
I mean,
protest?
how often do you poll everybody to find out what their morals are? So you can't really do that. No, what I'd suggest is part of the answer, but because what's missing out of these things. So you really posing the question of what's the foundation?
I'm asking you, what do you use as standard
a foundation
to basically standardize or define the morals in the society? Who decides that?
Okay.
First, who decides it? Secondly, how do you decide it?
I can only speak about my own society.
Fair enough, yeah.
Other societies will have different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And that therein lies an interesting point. That essentially each society, each culture has a whole history of how it got to where it is now and where it's going in the future. Ours in this country, which I know more about, is essentially you have to look at a process, almost like a conversation between generations, between people. So I'd say it's a process, and it's people working things through using reason, like you did on the abortion issue. That's how we do it. So, and I don't think the abolition of the laws against homosexuality were down to a vote. It was people who were, you could even argue it was undemocratic. There were people who saw themselves ahead of public opinion, and they said, we have to clear the way because this is demonstrably unjust, and we can argue for that. So they argued for it, and through the institutions of this country, through Parliament and all that sort of thing, they argued that, yes, we should repeal the laws against homosexuality because we have reasonable arguments. Now, 100 years before, the arguments would have been different. They would have said, look, in the Bible it says that you must stone people, and that was general. But so what I'm saying is that it's not kind of a sudden thing where you lurch from one thing to another. That you have to look at a particular society or culture.
So you're saying we have to go through this trial and error, through people sacrificing, through people dying unnecessarily. Do you really think that's a good way of going about in a society through trial and error, where you actually jeopardize some people's lives, just to make sure that at one point we might have a law that is just and right for everyone? Seriously? I mean, I give you the example of incest, yeah? So you're saying some people have to go and sleep with their mothers or fathers, yes, and then it becomes normal in a society. So until then, those people will basically be ostracized or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
Why should it become normal in society? Because it's a very deep-seated human instinct.
If oppression goes unchecked, that is what happens. Today we all are against oppression, aren't we? Yes? What happened in Iraq, if you ask me, that was oppression without question. But like I asked this gentleman here, who was accountable for it, were any prime ministers or presidents or the MPs who agreed with it, who were basically the key people to take the war ahead, were any of them accountable today? They are living a perfectly normal life today. In fact, they are living a better life than many of us today. Yes? Why is this? Why is our society come down to this?
What do you mean by accountable?
Accountable means people who basically made a mistake. Because of that mistake, thousands of people have died. Have they been accountable? Have they been brought to the court? Have they basically been put on trial? Because to me, they have done something majorly wrong. And anyone who does something wrong, they have to be taken, justice has to be served. What about those victims who died? Who is going to basically serve justice to them? Do they not deserve justice?
Is there a difference between me, because I'm a citizen of this country, so in retrospect you could say, like in a murder case, you could be accessory to murder. Because I'm donating tax money to be dropped, to be used to fund dropping bombs on the country, to do so other people are accountable as well.
No, you cannot say because you pay the tax money. Did you sign anywhere?
No, but I'm saying that, am I sort of not condoning it because I am funding?
Oh, I see. Are you saying are you guilty as well? Is that what you're saying?
Guilty,
no, you're not, because you did not sign a paper saying that my tax money should be used for war money. Did you say that? No. If you said that specifically, because we don't have such a choice, do we? Trust me, if there was such a choice,
to the point, but we still.
If there was such a choice that the government would give me a paper to sign on that my tax money should not be used for any wars, I would happily sign it.
I agree. But what I'm saying is, my money right now, when I know the NHS or the NHS,
you have no choice, bro. You and I have no choice. We pay taxes. Where our tax money is being used, maybe at local council level, you might have some say. But as far as the higher, like the prime minister's level or at that level, you have no say. They will use your tax money if they feel right. They will take the whole country to war on a pretext of some. What was it? It was basically just a dossier, isn't it? With some student had
dodgy dossier.
Yeah, the dodgy dossier. Yeah.
But the same thing does a dictator. Like say you have no choice. We have a choice to vote for them, and they do a lot of bullshit. But the same thing does a dictator, and still the people always pays for what the dictator decides. So.
Well, I'm not condoning that you should have a dictator. All I'm saying is that there has to be justice to the people who have been oppressed. That's all I'm saying. And to me, no civilized nation or person would disagree with that. When someone has been wronged, you have to correct the wrong. When someone is basically oppressed, you should basically hold those oppressors to account. That's all I'm saying. And that is a universal law. That is in the Geneva Convention. But has it been applied? No, it hasn't. That's all I'm saying. And that's why I'm telling you, we come back to God, because God legislates. For example, you know the wars that you see in the Quran? And I'll be the first one to say that anyone who says that there is no mention of wars in there, they're wrong. They haven't read the Quran. What were those wars for? Those wars were basically for people who were being oppressed. It says if you have to go, the wars, for example, the wars in the people who came, the pagans who marched all the way to Medina and Mecca, to Medina to go and wage wars against this minority of Muslims.
Oh, right.
Yes, these wars. And that's what I'm telling you.
In the early years of
in the earliest years of Islam. So those wars,
and it was
which were
It
fought.
was always defensive after that.
And by the way, you can
always
also
defensive.
you can
Always
also have
defensive.
not necessarily. You can also have offensive wars. I'll tell you why. For example, I will agree with the war. I'll agree with the first war against Saddam Hussein, who oppressed another country, Kuwait, to annex their land. So what? Majority of the Muslim countries and the Western countries got together and kicked out Saddam Hussein. That is an offensive war, and I agree with that as well.
So we missed out.
So what I'm saying,
defensive because you're defending Kuwait.
Yeah, well, for the Americans and all, it wasn't. Is it? For them, it was a defensive war. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
You need to defend. It wasn't just an arbitrary act of aggression.
What about Kosovo?
What about Kosovo?
What about Kosovo?
Oh, you mean whether it was right, the war, or it was who started the war? in Kosovo?
Well, I mean, if I remember rightly, and it was about 20 years ago, that and Bosnia-Herzegovina, there was...
Who were the oppressors in that war?
There was civil war between the Serbs, Croats, and the mainly Muslim Bosnians.
Yeah.
I remember arguing at the time we should not have let it go on for so long. We should have intervened. This was before the days when liberal intervention got a bad name. So there was a point where NATO, it was in NATO's boundary, and it seemed quite clear that it was the responsibility of NATO to send in peacekeeping forces. It took a damn long time for NATO to do that, and there were some terrible events on the way, like Srebrenica. But eventually, in Bosnia-Herzegovina and in Kosovo, NATO forces, including America, went in and brought some sort of peace to the country.
Yeah, but I just gave you the example of Iraq.
Images of Tony Blair being greeted by Muslims, hailing him as a hero. There's a lot of kids in Kosovo called Tony, apparently. So my point is that the world is a complex place. That sometimes that was a war. Are all wars wrong? No, exactly. That was a good judgment, it turns out. Iraq was a bad judgment, it turns out.
Yeah, but that's what I'm telling you. You see, I'm not questioning the good judgment. I'm talking about the bad judgment.
Well, you should question them all if you think.
No, wait. If something is good, why are you going to question it?
You should have. I mean,
if you're going to take a really good left turn over there, should I question that, or should I question you taking the wrong turn on the roundabout? You see, people don't question when you do something right. People don't question you. When you do something wrong, that is when you're questioned.
So what was wrong? Was the Kosovo war wrong?
No, I didn't say it was wrong.
What was it? I'm asking.
Well, it was wrong in the sense that they came quite late to defend the people who were being oppressed. So it was wrong in that sense. I'm talking about the war, for example, Iraq and so on. These wars were wrong, and no one was
freeing Iraq from Saddam Hussein, a vile dictator.
Who was killing at the expense of how many millions?
Yeah.
They shove it under the carpet, isn't it? All those victims.
Expense of
the people who died there.
Why? Why did they?
Wait. Could the West take out Saddam Hussein if they wanted to? Just Saddam Hussein. Could they do it?
Clearly they were.
Could they assassinate him if they wanted to?
No idea. I'm not a special forces operative, am I?
Well, you don't have to be. I'm saying if they had the ability, they could have. Have they tried that? No, they didn't.
I don't like, for example, if Andy says
there you go. So that's what I'm telling you. If something is wrong, if people have been oppressed, if people have been killed unjustly, you should definitely question that, and the people who are responsible should definitely be brought to account. That's all I'm saying.
And there's many other videos on there as well.
Do you agree or disagree with that?
It's a sound general principle, yeah.
Okay.
Dawah, Scdawah, D-A-W-A.
Yeah, I think they've exhausted
I hesitate to get into details about things like Iraq, Israel, Palestine, because it's so complicated. I'm trying to understand. Well, there you go. People who say it's not complicated have not tried to study it at all.
You have a understanding. Land for people with our people.
People who
it became complicated. When it started, it was clear as one was an oppressor, the other was oppressed. It was very clear. Whether you agree or disagree,
I'm not going to.
If you look at
otherwise in 10 minutes at Speakerscorner.
If you look at the initial history of those wars, you'll see how simple it was to resolve, but it didn't get resolved.
So at the end of it, I win. Thanks, guys.
I don't think that's how it works.
I suggest you watch the video.
I haven't been on YouTube
before you make that decision.
Where should they watch it?
Scdawah. Please subscribe. I get told off by the cameraman.
I mean, it's a great thing. We don't have this in Zurich, so I love it.
It's good. But my main point was, like I said earlier on, is that the law don't straight away down laws that are in a holy. But I would agree with you. Always check on them. That's fair. I'm fair. Question them, Andy. Question them. I'm fine with that. That's the best thing to do. Come in, question them. Question their morality, and I'm pretty sure you'll find the Quran is not like any other religion, and Islam is not like any other religion. The laws make sense, and they're there for a reason. And if you clash them against the laws of today, I guarantee you 100%.
I remember the arguments we used to have before that religion forces laws on you. For example, the law of getting dressing. For example, women in Islam, they cover from head to toe. Yes. So many people used to say that they have been forced to do it. You ask many of those women today, they'll say, no, we wear it out of our own will.
What if they do?
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Now today what's happening, these liberals in these societies, they are forcing it off them. Yes?
Yeah.
Now you tell me, the people who force it on them and the people who force it off them, what's the difference? Both are imposing the laws, you see what I mean? So after all that trial and error, we come back to square one again in those things. That's what I'm telling you. This trial and error doesn't work in society. The liberal idea of subjective morality doesn't work.
So, do you have a wife?
I do, yeah.
Does she wear the hijab?
She wears a hijab, yeah.
So what if she decided to not wear it anymore? Would you oppose it?
Would I oppose it?
Yeah.
I would disagree with it, but I wouldn't force it on her because then she'll be doing it for me and not for God. You see, I want her to do it out of her own will, yes, for God. Because you see, what is the objective of the hijab? It is basically for her recognition as a Muslim, as a believing Muslim, and something that God has ordained. These two principles are very important and it's part of her religion. But for a country like, I don't know, where is the ban in France, for example, they force it off the women.
Yeah.
So even these women, they do it. You see, people are allowed to dress how they want. People can go naked over there, no one will talk. But as soon as they cover, why did she cover? Who told her to cover? No, she's oppressed. Why didn't you ask that lady? Ask that woman if she's been oppressed. And if she's been oppressed, then take the step of basically enforcing the law. What you're doing is the other way around. First shoot, then ask questions. It doesn't work like that. This is the trial and error. We always come back. We always go back to this ancient law where you impose things, where you force things. And this is not what the the early liberals wanted as well.
Here's a question. If somebody is oppressed,
Yeah.
such that they're kind of tied into an ideology, but they are still being objectively oppressed, are they likely to answer the question? Are they likely to
You need to clarify that.
Are you being oppressed?
Are you talking about
physically or
oppression
not?
of thought, or you're talking about oppression of
Thought.
physically?
Yeah, that's
But
what I meant, an ideology, yeah.
Yeah, but you see, oppression of thought, that is subjective, isn't it?
Well, we can set up some guidelines to...
Like, for
decide
example,
whether
when you bring up
somebody's
your
oppressed.
children, they will most likely grow up as atheist or agnostic. Are you imposing those ideas on them? Most likely. Even though you
If I
might...
had children, I think what I'd want to do
Yeah.
is introduce them to all the world's great religions.
Okay.
I mean, I think this is how families should work.
I start with the Quran.
Yeah, exactly. In your household,
Yes.
it's a Muslim household, and you know, I'm not going to tell you how to run your family affairs, but as a kind of idea, which had I been a parent, I think this is what I would
No, I'm
have
talking
done.
about your
I'd say, look,
personal
here's the world's religions.
families.
Our household
Yeah.
is agnostic atheist, but from a Christian background. And here are all the other religions. And that's how I'd like schools to operate, all schools to operate. So when you get to an age where you can make a decision, then it's up to you to make a decision.
But they do. That's the reason many people leave Islam. There's a reason many people come into Islam. Because when they grow up, they're not hermits sitting at home or sitting in a cave. They basically go around and
So
mix with
leaving
people
Islam
in
is a
universities.
very smooth process, is it? There's no
Say again?
problem. Leaving Islam, it's a nice smooth process.
Well, it is
No
in this
problem.
country from what I know. It is in this country
No,
from what I know.
I didn't say in this country, generally.
Andy, listen.
And according to the
Andy,
tenets of Islam.
Andy, look. If your child, you seem very liberal, yeah? If your child wants to become Muslim, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you would never have a problem with it. No. Right. But this, and,
But you're not opposing at all?
Two levels.
Excellent.
Respecting the child's liberty to make their own decision, not a problem.
Excellent.
With the actual decision, oh yeah. I might, but
So
I want to discuss it.
at
What was it
now,
about?
that's exactly
and
what a
maybe
Muslim household would do.
they're probably going to be far brighter than I am, because my children were
Andy.
bound to be far brighter, and they've convinced me
A
to
bit
join
humble
you.
there, Andy.
They'll be brighter
Andy,
than
it's the same thing in Islam. If somebody wants to leave, like for example, if the brother's wife wanted to take his hijab off, he's not going to throw a party, is he?
Right.
Is he going to throw a party? No. What he's
That's the
going to
reason
do
I said
is
I'll
talk
disagree
to
with
her.
it.
He would disagree with it, and he
But
would
not
discuss
impose it.
with her. He's not going to say amazing, great deal because he believes that's not right. Do you understand what I mean?
So according
But the
to
point is, she would still have her freedom. Sorry, Andy. She would still have her freedoms to make that choice. Doesn't mean we have to be happy about it. That's logical. Just like Andy said, now, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy. You would allow them to make the choice of becoming Muslim, but you would definitely question it. You would say, look, let's iron out the details because I don't think it's right. That's fair, right?
In the same way as if they want to become a communist.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Andy. And that's exactly what he just said. So we're not, no one said the belt's going to come out, no one said the stick's going to come out, whatever you think is going to come out. This is something that's hyped up by the media. Like I said, find us sisters who are saying that this hijab is forced to me, help me. Because if they said that, trust me, before anyone else gets there, the Muslims will get
And by the way, the question I want to ask you, Andy, is at what age would you allow them to take that freedom of choosing whatever faith or whatever ideology or whatever way of life?
Their frontal lobe is
every day you measure the
at the age of 20, 21, so yeah.
Sorry, at the age of 20, 21? So at the age of 18 they have no...
Reasonable enough.
Are you saying at the age of 18 they're not reasonable enough to drink?
What do you want,
No? So we should move that drinking age to 21 now.
People always oppose laws, so...
That's a good point you made, you know?
Yeah, I know, I mean,
You see, this is what I mean about subjective morality
you can-
in the society.
You can be rational at this age.
We now know voting, 45.
I know, but it's just it's a viewpoint of a neuropsychologist.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Now watch this. Now,
What's your background, by the way?
Sorry?
Wow, what's your background? What do you do for a living?
I study psychology and history.
Psychology and history.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So my point was, sorry, the fact is, like you said, it depends when they get it right. So Islam, do you know what Islam says about that? About making decisions about, for example, fasting and things like this, yeah? It says if the child is when they reach puberty, the age of puberty. Now, different children reach the age of puberty at a different time. Is that not more logical than saying, oh, by the way, when you're 18, you can just drink? Some kids in this country are totally irresponsible drinking at 18. Drive a car straight into a crowd of people. That wasn't drunk, by the way, the other day. But the fact is, then, this is human laws. This is why we're saying it's moralistically based. Where's your morals based? Probably background is religion somewhere, and that's where it's all got mixed up. What we're saying is this book has come, we're saying it's from God, it has solid laws that actually make sense. Find us the flaws.
What would you, Andy? At what age would you say they have the right to exercise their freedoms? Because I think she said 21, if I remember correctly. What about you? There has to be a, come on, there has to be a...
I don't think it's a cut and dry thing because it's not something like...
No, give me a range, give me a range. Not the exact age or the date. Give me a range. At what age would you think they're perfectly capable of making their own decisions?
Is it English?
It is, but there's still
some children are quick developers. At the age of 12, they might have more insight than most adults.
Right.
Others grow up and they never have much insight at all. So you can't lay down.
So if you had a child,
you judge. And at the end of the day, like I said, they have autonomy. And it's a gradual thing, isn't it? Well, you know this.
and that's the reason I'm asking you the age, because obviously you won't give them autonomy. You wouldn't give them autonomy at the age of 7, would you?
No, of course.
You wouldn't. You wouldn't let them drive a car at the age of 9, would you?
You know this better than I do as a parent.
Yes.
It's a constant sort of how much more freedom can I give them? And obviously you have your religion to guide you in that. But even so, I don't suppose there's much in the Quran about driving a car or riding a motorbike.
No, there's a general...
When can they go out by themselves? All that
there's a general age at which things are permitted in your adult life as compared to before your adult life.
That's fair enough.
And that's the reason I'm asking, look,
framework,
if for example, drinking alcohol, or for example, driving a car, or even in this country, even watching porn, yes, there has to be an age up to when it's legal or illegal. You see what I mean?
Sorry, there's two things
or having
here.
sex, for example.
Obviously, in law, there has to be an age. That's part of the problem, because the law has to be framed quite precisely. You can't say, oh, when you're ready for it, or whatever. But in actual reality, the way a person's psychology and personality develops is not so clear-cut, is it? I know plenty of adults who are not fit to drive a car. They should never be allowed near a car. They're wrong. I mean, maybe we should have psychological tests.
No, exceptions. We are talking general rule.
Yeah.
Let's not make exceptions the rule.
Actually, in law, you can be tried for a crime from the ages of 11 up. 12 up.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a kind of thinking there that says at a certain point in a child's development, we say at 11, then they're able to distinguish between right and wrong.
Do you see the contradiction there?
Between what and what?
Between the law saying you can do certain things at this age, and you saying, well, it's subjective, you have to judge a child differently.
Well, yeah.
But then
There's
the law is
two
saying,
different ways of approaching the
but then
problem.
do you see how that's a problem then?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? I think this is the point that you're trying to
Well, I don't know if it is, but it's a shame. All laws are like this, whether they're religious laws or secular
But
laws.
the religious law
They have to
have
give
a very
certain-
clear demarcation, but not so in people who do not follow an organized religion. That's what I'm saying. And this has always been a battle since I don't know how long. Yes, since time immemorial. This has always been the battle as who decides the laws and where do you draw the lines basically of legality and illegality, of permissibility and impermissibility. This is always so. For you to say that
very clear in the body of British law.
it is not. It's changing constantly.
As a law student, I can tell you it's not.
It's changing
Very
constantly.
convoluted. Okay, if you look at, for example, the whole system that we currently use is a case-by-case development. So each case, if it's different to previous cases, the law will change according to that case. This does not make any sense. It cannot work.
That's the way we do things.
That's the way we do things, but it doesn't necessarily make sense.
Okay, but that's beside the point.
And there can be bias involved as well.
Of course.
Of the judge, of the jury.
If you look at previous cases before, for example, when homosexuality was actually legalised, there were cases coming along, such as the case of R.V. Brown, such as the case of the Crown and Wilson, such as the case of the Crown and Barnes. These cases developed the law case by case, right? But they were homophobic decisions in these cases. If you look at the decision of judges such as Lord Templeman in the case of the Crown and Brown, they're very homophobic remarks being made there. Right?
So were those decisions overturned?
They were later preceded by case law, right? So the Crown and Brown was preceded by the Crown and Wilson, and then this was preceded by the Crown, Attorney General reference number 6.
You know your stuff.
Yeah, well,
you know what? I mean, the great thing about this for you is that it creates a lifetime income for lawyers, doesn't it? Well, you don't just go to a book and say, right, there you are, that sounds it. People like you have to plough through those cases. Come on, don't criticise it.
Someone has to do a job.
That's why I'm wearing sunglasses. I've got bags under these eyes. That's the problem. That's what I'm doing.